everyone, and welcome to The Backline with Rob and Adam. My name is Rob Norman, author of the cool improv book, Improvising Now, a practical guide to modern improv.
And my name is Adam Cawley, alumnus of the Second City Main Stage.
That's one hell of a radio voice, Adam. Excellent intro.
Well,
A-plus intro.
You know what? It felt like if someone's listening to the show for the first time, I want them to know who are these guys? And if I'm joking around off the top, they're not going to know, you know? Just making sure.
Adam, how are you? You're back in Toronto. You're living life. It snowed yesterday in the middle of April. How are you feeling?
Good. It feels like every time I come back, there's like I came back around Christmas and then something came up called Delta. And I was like, oh no, October was Delta. And then I went away. And then I came back for December and it was Omicron. Oh, and then I went away. And I came back and now it's sub-variants of Omicron. So I keep having these expectations of coming back and seeing people, and then it's been very difficult. But I'm back for a little work, which is great. But that also means that I'm canceling all my improv shows, which has been a bit of a bummer. But that's how you roll.
So you're being very cautious.
I'm being extremely cautious. I couldn't live with myself if I tested positive for COVID because I did a 10-minute set somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the new ledger that we all must calculate every time we say yes to a show. Someone just offered me a show, and of course I want to play. But my first question was, how long was the set? How long are we playing for? Because I have to now do the math to be like, okay, well, it's going to take me half an hour to get there. How many people are going to be in the audience? Do I risk the life of myself and everyone I love? I mean, I guess at this point too, you know, I talked this before to you off mic, but it feels like COVID is kind of a carousel where it's like everyone's going to get COVID. Just when do you want to hop on that carousel? Like, I guess you and I are both kind of thinking of it like, well, let's let it slow down a little bit. Once it slows down, and then we'll jump in and be like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah, it feels like if that is the case, cool. I know people who've gotten it twice. And I'm like, well, that sounds awful. If you can avoid it, I think it is like, it's just a balancing act. Finding ways to still have fun, still enjoy life, and feel good about not having to not see my parents or my wife or anything like that.
Not see your wife? What do you mean?
Like if I got sick, what?
Oh, I thought you meant you were flying back from LA and quarantining from your wife. I'm like, maybe this isn't a COVID issue.
I'm going to keep using COVID to just get away from things I don't want to do.
Yeah, I think for the most part, COVID is probably fine. You know, probably for someone like you don't have any old people living in your house. You don't have a baby who's unvaccinated. For the most part, you and your wife are probably very, very safe. Even if you were to get COVID, it's fine. But also, you know, whatever floats your boat, choose your own adventure, I'd say.
Yeah, totally. If I didn't have a reason to that I needed to stay extremely safe, then I'd be out there rocking shows all the time, smooching people on stage, having a great time.
What?
Sorry?
No, you shouldn't be smooching people on stage anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you shouldn't have been doing that in the first place.
Huh. Post-COVID world, whatever.
Adam Cawley, you know, we are talking a lot about COVID kind of ramping down, shows ramping back up. And with the opening of Comedy Bar East, Second City, Assembly, Bad Dog, Social Capital, all these spots are swinging back into full swing. And there's a lot of shows out there. And so a lot of people producing shows. Maybe they didn't produce shows before COVID, and now after the pandemic, they are dipping their toes into being a producer. And it can be very, very stressful. It can be really hard figuring out what shows are marketable and what shows sell and then what shows don't sell. and what shows aren't marketable. Do you have any initial thoughts about trying to market an improv show?
Well, I worked at Second City for many years, and the amount of times people came to it expecting it to be stand-up was astonishing. People don't know what improv is. It is a difficult thing to market because really, if you are an established stand-up or sketch troupe, you've got lots of TV credits and festival credits, you can have a pretty good bet that it's going to be good because they're probably not going to be winging it the night of. An improv show, no matter how good the performers are, it can always be bad. There's always a risk for it to be a nightmare. So it's very difficult to get people excited about it. And especially now where it's like, you want me to leave my home where I'm safe and warm? What? So part of it is getting people excited, non-improvisers, non-comedians. And I think this is where a lot of the improv community, we're so insulated that we think everybody knows what these shows are. I remember I got an email once from my mom after seeing some sort of thing I was doing on Facebook, and she goes, "Hello, Adam. I'm wondering about your show. What is Armando?" And I'm like, right. As improvisers, we're like, "Oh, we're doing Armando? Great. What style are we doing it in? What form are we doing?" But the general audience is like, "What are you talking about?" For most other comedy, you can just say, "Oh, it's stand-up. It's a one-person show," and we all get it. Improv is very difficult, and I think the way we market it could use a little, use a second glance.
An overhaul. You're absolutely right. When we're thinking about stand-up, really, it's very clear what the form is, which is stand on stage and be funny. And there are different versions of stand-up, but really the options are talking with a piano, talking with a puppet. Those are the only three things I can think of with stand-up. So, I mean, very rarely do you see a stand-up show where you go, this is stand-up with puppets. There's no real hook to it. It's just straight-up stand-up. But improv shows are a little bit trickier for many, many reasons. Part of that being there's so many of them. They are low impact. They are not challenging to produce. Like you and I could produce an improv show probably within 30 minutes right now.
I think everybody... Yeah. Everybody listening to this has done a show outside, in a gym, like in a back room of a bar. We don't need microphones. You don't need sound. You don't even need lights. Mm-hmm. You just need a few feet of space. Mm-hmm. That's about it.
And so if the overhead to producing a show is so low, then that's great. Lots of opportunity for lots of different people. Lots of different people can produce their own shows. But it also means there's no real gatekeeper producing shows. And so there's a lot of white noise. It's really hard for you to create something that stands out within the community. And it might be tricky if you're looking to produce a show, you want it to be a hit. What kind of show should you make? What is an improv show that's worth investing your time into? So here's what I've done, AC.
Uh-oh.
I've created some pitches for you for fake improv shows.
Ooh.
And I'm going to list them all off the beginning, but then we'll go through one by one, and you can tell me what you think of these premises.
And who am I in this situation? Am I a theater owner? Am I just a dude? Who am I?
Oh, yeah. So, I would say, you're, Shark Tank, Dragon's Den type investor.
Yeah.
And so you have $500 to $1,000. So you're wealthy in the improv world.
Uh-huh.
And you're going to decide what you're going to put your $500 towards. Okay.
Great.
Here we go. The 4 shows that I've invented are, number 1, The Cream. Toronto's best improvisers create Toronto's best improv scenes. Check it out this Friday night at Comedy Bar. It's called The Cream.
Great.
Number 2, Improvisers Assemble. Welcome to the improvised Marvel Universe. Check it out. That's a Thursday night show. Tickets are going really quick. I play the Hulk. Show number 3, Chrysanthemum, an exploration of the improv form, the exotic flower. So that's Chrysanthemum. That's a Tuesday nighter, so make sure you get tickets quick. And show number 4, Cringe, embarrassing real-life stories told on stage. Those are the 4 shows that I've made up. So if you're listening to this at home right now, maybe pick in your head which of these sound like good shows, which of these sound like bombs. Do you have a favorite show out of these 4? We're going to hear from the dragon himself, Adam Michael Cawley, about what he thinks about each of these pitches. So we're starting with number 1, Adam. This is called The Cream. It's Toronto's best improvisers creating Toronto's best improv scenes. What are your first thoughts about The Cream?
Well, I guess what I love is that every improv show I hear about, I picture the poster. And I picture a big bucket of cream being poured over the title of this show. That's my first image. I'm guessing cream meaning like cream of the crop?
No.
Oh, this is just cream.
No, this is just a cream. This is just creamed. Cream with good.
Good. Great. Well, you've told me this show is cream, which, in essence, has told me absolutely nothing. But you've made a very bold promise. The best improvisers? Whoa. Well, this sounds great. The best improv scenes? Wow. Congratulations. You have just marketed your show the way everybody in the world markets their improv show. Who is going to refute this claim? The best improvisers? Says who? Well, says me. Who are you? I'm an improviser. Well, story checks out. Like, how do you base this? Right? As we said before, even the best improvisers doing the best improv scenes. Cool. I tell that to my mom. She says, well, so what's the show? Well, I say it's the best. But what am I going to watch? The best scenes. What does that mean? In terms of marketability, this feels like a big thumbs down. You're making these bold claims because, again, who can refute it? There's no guarantee. What is the guarantee? This is the best? Okay. Well, I didn't think that was very good. Can I have my money back? Like, no. And you've also made it very difficult to get non-improvisers or non-comedians excited. Because if I tell my friend who has no place in the improv community what this is, they have no idea what to get excited about. They have no idea what to expect. They don't know if this is up their alley or not. It's tough. It just feels a little lazy, and it feels like it's much too broad while also staking a very odd claim, because everybody else in your community is going to be like, wait a second, I'm not involved in that show. Or you think you're the best? And it creates odd, unnecessary animosity. So yeah, that would be my thoughts on this cream show.
Well, I also feel like no one I know that is a great improviser is going around saying, come see me, the best improviser.
No.
I kind of feel like if you're claiming that these are the best improvisers doing the best improv, then you don't have the best improvisers, and it won't be the best improv. Just by claiming that. Because people who are actually good, people who have followings, who people line up to see, pay $20, $30 to watch them perform, they don't need to convince you they're the best. You know, if it's TJ and Dave, no one's saying, come see TJ and Dave, the best improvisers. They just go, it's TJ and Dave.
And you know who's not saying it? TJ and Dave. You know who is saying it? The audience who's just watched TJ and Dave.
Mm-hmm.
And when they come up again, the audience does the talking. Their experience does the talking. You ever see like an indie little chicken shop that says world famous chicken sandwiches? And you're like, really? Let me do a little Google here. Jeff's Chicken. Nothing's coming up. Huh. That's odd that they're boasting that they're world famous. Seems like a bit of a lie. But then you go to, like, in Toronto, there was this place, it's still there, I think, called Uncle Tetsu's Cheesecake. The only place I've seen consistently every time I go by with a lineup, it's just someone made very good cheesecake. It doesn't say anything about world famous or the very best. It's just, this is the cheesecake I make. I'll let people who consume it decide if it's the best or not. I'm not going to try and overcompensate by saying, this is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, I think Uncle Tetsu's is a franchise, just so you're aware.
Did it not start in Toronto?
I don't know. I have no
But
idea.
Either way, it doesn't say Uncle Tetsu's world famous. Uncle Tetsu's the best ever. It's just Uncle Tetsu's cheesecake. If you like it, line up. And people do for a long time. And that's how it gets that popularity. And it kind of holds on to a bit of that dignity because it's just like, I'm just doing my thing.
I also think you nailed it, kind of addressing some of the problems we have with perspective. So for us as improvisers, we're inside the world of improv. So we're obsessed about it. We're obsessed about who's improvising. We're obsessed about the format. We're obsessed about the technique. We're obsessed about what makes this show different. And I think that's awesome. That's what you do as artists. But if you're a business person, nobody cares about improv. Like, the people who care about improv are already going to see your show. So you don't need to tell those people about your improv show. You know, if you just say to me, let's go watch Formula One racing, I'd be like, well, you don't know me very well. But if you wanted to convince me, you could be like, listen, dude, I know it doesn't sound cool, but when you see cars zooming past at 200 miles an hour, and there's probably going to be a crash, like, even if you don't like it, you just gotta come with me. You gotta see it one time. And I'd be like, okay, let's go. But if you were to come up to me and say, listen, Rob, Toronto's best mechanics install Toronto's best carburetors in cars, you gotta see it. You gotta see the cars drive after we put the carburetors in. I would be like, I don't give a shit. I don't know what a carburetor does. I don't care about mechanics. I don't care about cars. So us going so inside our art form doesn't do us any favors.
No, it just increases that that feeling of we're inside and you're not, right? A general audience member doesn't feel welcomed to that show. What does this mean, right? I think about things that I've pushed on people or been like, you got to try this thing, right? I don't even think this place exists anymore, but there was a time my hair grows very, very fast. And so there was this hairdresser called Mankind. And I would tell everyone to go there because what they did was you would go in, you get your hair washed, you get a massage, you get your hands put in paraffin wax, and then they massage your hands, get your hair cut. Then 2 weeks later, for free, you can come in and get your neck and, like, ears all touched up. There's your haircut. Imagine that versus you got to go to my guy. It's the best. Well, why? The best. Yeah, but tell me about the experience. It's the best. That you're not selling me anything. You're just telling me what works for you, and that doesn't work for everybody. So explain to me what this is, and then I can get on board or decide, it's not for me.
It's funny because as you were talking about Mankind, I was like, the wrestler, and then you started talking about why the haircuts were so good, and you literally verbatim said this to me probably 500 times about how much you like the 2 weeks cleanup.
Yeah.
You're a very consistent man, Adam Cawley.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on.
Okay.
We're moving on to number 2.
Okay.
This is called Improvisers Assemble. Welcome to the Improvise Marvel Universe. What do you think about this?
So, is this for me? Probably not. But that's just me. We're talking about markability. So markability, instantly, I'm like, big thumbs up.
That's different than marketability?
What did I say?
You said markability, like the ability to be Mark.
Oh, yes. Mark Ruffalo who plays Hulk, who's in the Avengers.
Yes, of course.
No, but instantly I'm like, again, the poster. What's the poster? Well, it's all the Avengers with the improvisers' heads on the Avengers. Done. There's your cast. There's your thing. Cool. I know who's playing what. I know what's up. As I said, is this for me? Probably not. But I can tell someone who I know is into Marvel and loves going to see live shows, you gotta see this show. Because this is for you. It's up your alley. Well, what is it? You know Avengers? These actors are going to play the Avengers and improvise around suggestions from you. Doesn't that sound fun? I don't know the format, but I'm trusting that if you're telling me you are the Avengers but improv, you're going to give me some of that. So if I like comics, if I like those movies, if I have a guy with like a nephew who's like, oh my God, my nephew loves the Avengers, we'll bring him to this show. Like, it's so accessible and it's clear. Right? You know, and you can get excited pre-show because you know what's coming and you're excited about it. And if you're not excited about it, you've been given very clear instructions about what this is. So don't come. So therefore, you're reducing the amount of potential disappointment in your audience of like, oh, this is what you think the best is versus, oh yeah, you gave me improv and Avengers. I hate Avengers. Why did I come? That's on me. So thumbs up. As I said, they're just being open and honest. This is what this is. You like it? Come on in. You don't like it? Maybe not for you. What more can you ask for?
And I would say within Toronto, we have a long history of doing these kinds of improv shows that have literally sustained companies. They have prevented companies from going bankrupt.
Yeah, you did what, Battlestar Awesome
Galactica?
Star?
Battle Awesome Star was our version of it, but yeah, it was a Battlestar Galactica.
I did one called Man Men. There was a Mad Men parody, and it's like, yeah, they're exactly or we tried to. If you're a fan of the show, you're a fan of improv, we're going to combine it and give you a good experience. Very clear.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe these shows can feel a little bit hacky because really they are kind of plug and play. You find out what your character's deal is, and then you're kind of performing, but you're also satirizing, making fun of the thing that people love. I've done a bunch of these shows, actually. I did a bunch of these shows in the beginning of improv.
They're done by hacks. Wait a second, I've done a bunch.
Well, but I mean, like, I think there's just like anything, there's a cool way to do this, and then there is a gauche way to do this. And depending on how super saturated your market is with these types of shows, I think that changes people's relationships with these kinds of shows. So, for example, if you have your theater has, Monday to Thursday, you're doing experimental improv, and then Friday night you do whatever, Marvel's Justice League parody. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and probably makes a lot of business sense if you're in a community that doesn't quite have a full understanding of what improv is yet.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I don't know, even the hack label, I'm like, I don't know, is it hack? I don't think so. This is completely, it's like, how can it be hack if you're not trying to dupe someone? If you're saying, this is what I'm doing, and people say, well, I'm interested in it, then that's not hacky at all. I think the hackiness comes from, I'm claiming to do this thing, but I'm really doing the easy version of it, or I'm doing a dumbed down version of it. But this, the way you have marketed this show, it does feel like, again, it's not necessarily something I would be interested in, but I could see this being a hit and very marketable. As you kind of mentioned, like when the Bad Dog, their original space on the Danforth, they were like, we don't have a bar, rent is jacked up, like I don't know what to do. There was a show called Harry Potter, and it was the first one of this, and birthday parties would come. Like, all these kids got introduced to what improv is, and I'm sure that sold a ton of youth classes as well. Like, it's a fantastic way to get people, if your goal as a theater or as a community is to get more people excited about this, well, this is a fantastic way in.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I mean, again, it's just like anything. Like if you put the time into rehearsing and thinking through how this show would work, then yeah, it could be really really cool. I mean, with Battle Awesome Awesome Star, we invented a whole new way of creating improvised narrative structures. It was a massive experiment and it was a massive success. Um, but also, I have seen versions of this where people go, "Hey, let's cash in on Marvel. You go buy a Hulk mask, and then we'll just do a bunch of random scenes." So yes, I think this can be very very cool, and it can also be used for evil. But when we're talking about marketing,
Yeah.
this is piggybacking on something that people already know, and we're taking that fandom and we are appropriating it for our improv. But let's talk about something a little bit different. And this is a project I've been working on for quite a long time. It's called Chrysanthemum. And this is an exploration of the improv form I've been kind of developing called The Exotic Flower. And this show happens on Tuesday nights. And I just want to know your thoughts on Chrysanthemum.
So, what do you think the most popular improv form in the world is? For improvisers.
I'm hoping it's The Exotic Flower.
Fair enough. Previous to the invention of the exotic flower, what is?
If you're talking about forms, I would say the Herald. If you're talking about formats, I'd say short form.
Cool.
Theater sports.
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of like a form like the Herald, it's been around since what, like 81 earlier. No one knows what the Herald is. Unless you're an improviser, nobody knows. Oh, it's been performed by all of your favorite comedians, Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, and no one knows. No one knows. Even if you know, what kind of Herald are you doing? Oh, are you doing an organic? Oh, are you doing this? Oh, you guys remove the group games? Oh, okay. There's no way to understand what kind of Herald you're seeing. Come see Herald Night. What does that mean? To the general audience. Again, to improvisers, I know exactly what that is. But in terms of marketability, you don't really need to market improv shows to your improv students. They're there. You ever been to Herald Night at UCB? Anyone here students? 90% of them start clapping. Great. So, this is a fine artistic choice. But again, we're not talking about that. We're talking about marketability. So for me, this is a big fail. I don't know what exotic flower is, even if it's the best form in the world. And I know you have put out some very good flower-based forms. You did Rose and a Thorn. Mm-hmm. You did Dandelion, that lion show full of dandies. Mm-hmm. But in terms of what's that?
Rhododendron.
Oh my God, Rhododendron. Tulips. I don't know. Now we just have flower puns. But yeah, in terms of marketability, I see this poster on the street. It's a flower. It's maybe got some palm leaves, and it says, "Come experience the euphoria that comes with the exotic flower." And I say, well, what does that mean? Well, it's the exotic flower. Uh-huh. It's an improv show? Yep. What kind of improv? Well, we take a scene, but then we plant it, and it grows. Uh-huh. That's not a show I can sell to my friends if I've got a friend in from out of town. If I'm going on a date, I'm bringing someone because it's my night to plan the social activity. Who's taking the risk on the exotic flower? Probably not a lot of people. Again, improvisers, they're reading Reddit forums and fucking they're all over the place being like, what's the new form? What's the new thing? That's great. And the majority of improv audiences in most communities are improvisers. But again, if the goal is marketability, this poster, this title tells me nothing. So I will pay $0 for 0% of your company.
I mean, when we're marketing a show, I think people think that you put up a poster, you put it on the street, someone walks by that poster and goes, "Sounds cool, I'll be there." And I don't think that's ever happened in the history of time. Like, and honestly, if someone's arriving to your improv show because they saw a poster on a lamppost and decided to check it out, I would be very concerned about that person. I'd be like, that guy just came off the street. Be careful. Watch yourself around that person. Because that's just not how people behave. People don't see random things and then enter your theater. So when we're thinking about marketing, what we're really thinking about is communities. The reason why Improvisers Assemble works so well, and I actually think it works less well now than it used to, is because there's a community surrounding comic books. Now, comic books are so mainstream now, I think the community is a little less tightly knit. But let's say, for example, you were talking about something like you're going to do an anime show. You're going to do a Cowboy Bebop parody. Well, great. Okay, there is a community of people who feel underserved by Cowboy Bebop, and they want to experience it. And so they're going to meet other people who love Cowboy Bebop, and they're going to watch all their favorite characters. And that's going to be an awesome experience because they just can't get it anywhere else. You know, there is an improv community, but it doesn't really make sense to try and reach out to those folks. It doesn't really make sense. I mean, you're already going to be doing that in classes when you're teaching, being like, well, I'm doing a show Friday night. Check it out. It's called The Exotic Flower. I know there's a lot of theaters like UCB and the old IO that didn't have to worry about anything because the improv community was so large that people would just come see their improv show. So it was improv for other improvisers. And if that's your business model, rock and roll, have a blast. But I'd say for the majority of the new theaters that are popping up across North America and across Europe and across the rest of the world, they are not in that situation. And so what community are you tapping into? The more specific you are, the more underserved that particular community is, the better chances you are going to have of getting people through your doors.
It's a really good point, what you kind of just made of basically where else can you post this thing, right? I think about your specific interests, and if I see something out in the world that I'm like, oh my God, that's so Rob, I take a picture or I buy it or whatever, and I'm like, Rob, you got to see this thing. And that's what you want to be like, hey, you know us with our specific interests? They're doing a comedy show about that specific thing. Well, in reality, we don't do comedy. We are D&D, or we are comic books. We are sports, whatever it is. And now we have a new fun way to experience the thing that we love. Great. But if your improv show is for improvisers and you're posting it on the improv forums, you're just going to have people say, I got my own show. What do you mean? Like, I'm busy. Or, yeah, I know what that is. Or, I've never seen it. Do you remember, I'll tell you off mic, but do you remember you and me at a festival and this troupe came out and they're like, well, we're doing our signature form, the blank. And we heard that and we're like, what the fuck is that? And no one clapped. No one cared. Because it's like, how do you expect a general audience to know any of this stuff? If the thing is so good and you do it enough, then sure, it might get some marketability. But to market it as, this is my new form, the desk. Come see 4 legs and a flat top, the desk, Friday night. And then you combine that with some of the best improvisers in the world will be there doing the desk. What are you talking about? Right? It's like, I always use sports just because I know that world, but it's like, come see some of the top athletes do game. Well, is it football? No. It's sport. It's game. Was it soccer? Hockey? Like, what am I going to watch? I like athletes when they're excelling at the thing that they do in the game that I understand, but I don't understand desk or sport with some of the top athletes in the world.
Yeah, I mean, when we're thinking about the show, when we're thinking about our elevator pitch, we want it to be evocative. And so you want to be talking about the audience's experience. Like, you're not selling an improv show, you're selling an experience. And so what is the experience you're giving the audience? Like, maybe there is a version of Chrysanthemum that is retooled to really highlight a kind of like nuit blanche art crowd that is like high-minded, highfalutin, high concept art. Cool, that's awesome. But you have to be very specific of how you're going to cut through that white noise because it's quite a competitive field. There's going to be a lot of art events that you're going to be competing with.
Well, and the way it's said here, an exploration of the improv form, the exotic flower. That's not doing what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, like, my problem is not with the idea of doing a chrysanthemum type show. We're talking about marketability only. And the way this is currently marketed, yeah, it needs work. And it's not to say that it can't work, but just to your point, we have to curate and tickle the kind of buyer's bone of like, you know, this thing that you might be interested in, but we're doing it. Let me give you a little taste of what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think maybe the closest thing I could think of that was a successful version of this kind of territory would be a show based on dreams. So, like, for example, I could imagine a version of a show like this where you get an audience member, you hire a real dream analyst to come in, analyze the dreams, and then improvise around it. And it's like,
Great.
You know, form bending, you know, surreal.
But what
show.
you just said is at least clear of like a real dream analyst breaks down audience members' dreams and are turned into improv scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Again, is that for everyone? No. But you're not looking to grab everyone. You're looking to grab people who think, holy shit, I'm excited about that idea before I even show up.
And if I do like high concept improv shows, the dream show is a better sell than Chrysanthemum to begin with. Like the people who are excited about that kind of work, I think they're going to be more excited about this, knowing specifically what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the promise. Here's the promise to the audience. Okay, so that was Chrysanthemum, a little bit rude.
What?
Well, I worked really hard on that.
Really?
So, It's actually very funny, though, because I have invented a few forms that do travel around a bit. And I would never imagine walking on stage, me and you being like, hey, everyone, me and Adam are about to perform The Bottle. Enjoy. I can't imagine doing that.
I could imagine just stunned faces of like, oh, like, great. I hope it goes well for you because it's doing nothing for me.
I could imagine that maybe if we were doing like 70 cities, I could do that as a joke to throw you under the bus and just bomb our own show. But I can't imagine ever doing that. It just isn't improv.
You know that
improv
you throw me
is
under the
not
bus every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if if anyone has ever seen me in Rob Live, you throw me under the bus because you tell the audience I'm your guest. I'm the special guest every time we perform. And then they look at me like, well, who's this fucker? I thought I came to see a troupe.
You're right. I've been doing that for about 6 years.
Yeah.
And the issue is it's still so funny because it gets under your skin every single time.
It does, and I forget to tell you, as soon as you bring it up, every time I'm like, fuck, I should explain this to the audience. I hate starting at a deficit, but we go for it.
I love it. Oh, that makes me so happy. Great. So that was Chrysanthemum. Now we're moving on to Cringe. Embarrassing real stories told on stage. What do you think about Cringe?
Again, I get it, right? I can see... I don't know if this one has such a clear poster, but the tagline it's exactly what it is, right? It's very Moth-like, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's Moth? Like real stories told on stage without notes?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that? Great.
Mm-hmm.
If you are into that, then this is clearly for you. There's no way that my mom will misinterpret this. She can hear it and say, oh, that's either something I'm interested in or not. And that's what we want, because that's the first step, as I said earlier, to avoid a disappointed audience. And flip that around, the best way to get an excited audience, right? We talk about Malcolm Gladwell all the time, a primed audience. I am so ready to enjoy this show because I've been promised this thing and I can't wait to see them do it because I love this kind of shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like, again, yeah, it's experience based. It's very clear, kind of what we're trying to do, and I like shows that do have that kind of promise because it allows you to either live up to it or fall short of it. I also wonder maybe if we're thinking about shows like this that have only, you have 3 rehearsals before you hop on stage. I wonder if a promise like this also forces the performers to step up as well. Like the idea that, okay, this is the dream analyst show. Everyone's expecting this to be a mind-bending show. Well, then maybe I do have to focus on my transitions a little bit more. Maybe I do have to focus on my Armando skills in cringe or whatever it is. So those promises hold us accountable.
And the accountability, I think improvisers need accountability every once in a while, right? Not like with offstage behavior or anything, but like it's so easy to not give it your all. And I think when we have moments like, come see these are the best people having a great time. Well, who's to say they weren't the best and didn't have a great time? But with, as you said, like this kind of cringe show or the Avengers, as an audience member, I feel like I can clearly say whether they achieved it or not. But when it's so vague, did they do the best chrysanthemum tonight? I actually don't know. Well, was it a good one tonight? I don't know. I've never done that thing. Like I remember talk about Nuit Blanche, which is like a 24-hour or overnight outdoor art project in Toronto with a collection of individual artists showcasing their stuff. And one of them I did in Old City Hall in Toronto was a sound bath. And I'd never done one before. And I laid down and had a bunch of sounds hit me. And I was like, oh, well, that was different. It's like, was it fun? Well, I don't know. Is it supposed to be fun? Was it a good one? I don't know. Like, I don't know what the goal is. It's just like, yeah, it's free. I'm here. I'll do it. And then I'm just kind of left like, interesting. I don't know what it's supposed to give me. And if the idea is that's up to you, it's your own thing, fine. But I don't think that's the goal of most improv shows.
Yeah. And, I think the challenge with marketability is it lives between these two worlds, which is one of these worlds is a recognizable kind of experience that people can understand, which is why Improvisers Assemble makes sense because we all have a relationship with Marvel movies. And on the other end of the spectrum is something that we don't have a relationship at all with. So there's no clear experience. It's unlike anything you've ever experienced, which is sometimes what people try and pitch their shows as, which I wouldn't recommend. And so I definitely wouldn't advise you to create a Marvel show if there's 2 other Marvel shows in your city, because it's now gone from recognizable experience to everybody scrambling for the same kind of energy. You and I, for many years, did a party show, which was the first of its kind in our city. And over the years, many people tried to kind of all jump on board that train. And so for a while, there was like 7 party shows. And you're like, okay, I guess we just party a lot in improv here in Toronto. You're also looking for something that is recognizable, but is an unoccupied space. So something that nobody else is doing. I can give you a quick example of this. For a while, I was performing on Second City cruise ships or directing Second City cruise ships. And the first ship I was on was called the Norwegian Pearl. And I had a bunch of people in my cast. One of them was this woman. She's a Bostonian improviser named Kylie Fitzgerald. She just made it onto Second City main stage, so congratulations to Kylie. And I remember watching her play Sex with Me is like, or I like my men like I like my blank. You know that game?
Yep.
So these are sexual innuendos. I had never seen an improv game like this before. I had never seen what it could do to an audience before. And it was only one game that we did in our set. And I got really good at it. And when it was done, when I my contract finished after 2 months, I came back to Toronto and made a show called Filthy, which was just all those games. And it was a very exciting time because we had never seen a show like that before. We had never made that kind of show. And that's what I'm constantly thinking about when I'm thinking about developing new work. I'm like, I'm thinking of improv games that other cities do and trying to steal them and bring them here. No, but I'm looking for what's the thing that's missing in our community? What's the kind of show or the kind of experience that other cities might have, or maybe other cities don't have, that our city doesn't have? You know, we started a duo parade. There weren't a ton of duo parades when we started Party Heart Heart Party. So that might be something that we might be thinking about if we're thinking about picking a project to begin with. What is the space that's currently unoccupied?
Yep, absolutely. It just seems like the logical choice, but it's also the dangerous choice, right? If we've got a show that's currently running and is good, and you're like, well, I want to be on that show, but I'm not. Well, I'll create my own version of it. Well, you're doing two things. One, you're diluting your audience, and two, you just might be rubbing people the wrong way of like, we already have that show. We invented this thing. Why are you taking it? That's one thing. But the other is, when you're filling a space that is not there, you instantly have nothing to worry about. Other than getting people into the show, there is nothing you're being compared to. And usually, like, God, you listen to our first episodes, you listen to the first episodes of any podcast, it's usually awful. The sound quality's bad, it's awkward conversation, and then it just gets better. And I think that's when you're creating a new show, you have a little leeway of, well, we're finding our feet, we're getting better, but we're definitely not doing anything that's already there. And again, you think of sports, it's like you could have the two best players on the same line, but because they play the same position, it doesn't make any sense. You need players who do different things to complement each other, to get people excited. But if your theater or your community is running Herald Night Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, well, it feels like you're wasting a big opportunity to make Herald Night a big deal. Because right now, Herald Night's like, yeah, I don't know, I can see it any night. But when we've got something that's the improvised, the continuous week-to-week improvised soap opera. Okay, again, not up my alley, but that's something that feels new and fresh. Don't have that here right now. So absolutely finding what is not there and filling that void. Again, if the goal is making the community stronger, all you are doing is possibly bringing in more people who the current improv landscape didn't interest them. But, oh, Marvel? Maybe I'll go to my first improv show. I don't know. Soap opera? Maybe I'll do that. But I don't think these vague or repetitive shows are going to be bringing new people in. It just might be rehashing the same thing, mostly directed at other improvisers or improv students.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, if you're just starting out or your community is new, don't look to the big cities of how they're producing shows or how they're creating headlining acts. Don't look to your improv teachers how they produce their shows. Like there are a lot of improv troupes that I can think of that are four very prominent improvisers who have been in the city for 20 years, who come together to do a new troupe, and they do a weekly show and they're sold out every week. And they have, you know, it's a kind of obscure premise. It's put together in this kind of art house way. The poster is, you know, mysterious. Those people already have a following. They don't need to sell the show. They've already sold out the show by existing. This is 20 years of work. They have nothing to prove. And so you reproducing that when no one knows who you are will not help you. It will not make you look like them. It'll just make you look like you don't know what you're doing in a theater when no one shows up to watch. So having a clear premise, selling it correctly is a great way for you to start. When we're thinking about posters, AC, what should a poster have on it?
Well, I think the information. When, where, how much is the show? But just like a movie poster, right? Movies are quite popular, but they still have log lines. They still have taglines. They still have, this is the title, and here's like a summer they'll never forget, or the story of a coming of age story of love, life, and resiliency in the 1920s. It's like, okay, I get it. If this wasn't the case, every movie would just be called Great Movie, Great Actors, Great Movie. Check it out. What's the genre? Best genre. What are you talking about? Best movie, best genre, best actors, best color, best sound. What is this thing? I don't want to take the risk. I think especially now, right? The idea of going out around the world has dramatically changed. Even if COVID, whatever the situation is and wherever you are in the world, there's just a mindset of, man, it's a lot of work to go out. So if I'm going to go out, I want it to be something I love. I'm not going to restaurant. What food? Best food. What ambiance? Best. What is it? I want to go to something that is very clear, very laid out for me so I can make my own informed decisions and get excited about it. I don't want to be nervous before I head out. I hope this is good. I hope this is something I like. But when it's clearly laid out, I can make a decision, and I'm probably going to go to something I enjoy. Therefore, I'm excited. Probably leads to a more successful show.
Yeah, I would say if you're going to, I think even within Toronto, if you want to sell your show, then I think there's two things that you should be thinking about to sell to, at least to the improv community. One, pay someone $125 to design your poster for you. I would recommend that a lot. Clip art is great if you already have a following or you're doing like a kind of like weekly open mic where the names are always changing. But if you're doing an improv show that's once a month, having a nice poster will help you out a lot. A photo shoot will also help you out a lot. If I'm walking through the halls and I see a group of people have gotten together, they've gotten all in their suits or whatever they're wearing, and they have a nice photo from a nice photographer, I go, oh, well, these people cared about this show enough to pose for a picture. Having your face on the poster sells it very well because it's inviting. You're like, oh, Adam Colley's in the show, and I see Adam Colley's face. He seems like a nice guy. That's a safe place for me to go. I'll check it out. I'll try it out. So overall, that costs $250. That's my guess. To have someone design the show and have a real photo shoot. If you can afford that, it goes a long way.
Well,
I mean, also, what?
Just building on what should be on a poster, and this kind of is, I guess, unsaid, but I'm saying it now. If you've got a bunch of credits, if you've got a bunch of quotes from festivals, from newspapers, from blogs, from other theaters, yeah, put that on your poster. Make it impossible for people to say no, right? If you've got 4 stars from the Pickering, Ontario Fringe Festival, put 4 stars there. And then in smaller print, put Pickering Fringe Festival. But put, like, these people, as you said with the photo shoot, if they put this much effort into the poster or into touring, into being in festivals, they probably put a lot of effort into the show. I don't think I'm going to show up and be like, are the lights still on? Like, is anyone here? Is someone taking my ticket? Like, what's happening here? And that, look, if you've got a million credits, if you're like, you can put on your thing, like, from the Tonight Show and Netflix and this, you can probably name your show whatever you want. I'm going under the assumption that not everyone has that. Most people don't have that. It's very hard to get clear reviews for improv shows. But if you have that, absolutely put it on. And this is all under the assumption that, no, these troops don't have the New York Times saying this is the #1 show. You have to see it.
Right. Yeah. I think those are all great suggestions. And check them with your troupe. I know when we first started, I was making a new poster every week for free. Spent a lot of hours making those posters, and it made it feel like our troupe was cooler and more professional than it actually was. It was just
That's
I had
true.
a lot of spare
Not
time in
cool
my
at
hand.
all.
Losers with a guy who took a design class one time. That's all it was. We were losers with some design history. Great, Adam. Any other final thoughts or think about marketing a shows or picking a show that you want to be successful?
I use this a lot in classes when we talk about characters and think about labeling, right? I'm a big believer in being able to label your characters. Oh, you're grossed out. Cool. You're always grossed out, right? I think about how a non-improviser would talk about these things, because they're not going to say, remember that character? His name was Jeff. And I think he had mentioned that he went to St. Mary's High School. And he's like, they're not going to remember those little details. They're going to remember the thing that they can see, which is the behavior. It's like, oh, that grossed out character was so fun. Oh, that little, that selfish alien, loved it. Cool. Think about the same thing with your improv show. How can a non-improviser describe it? And if they can't, or it takes them more than 2 sentences, you probably lost them. So just thinking about how can a non-improviser talk about your show? And if they can say, go and see the improvised frat party, okay. Go and see the improvised Avengers, okay. Just be aware of how word of mouth spreads about your show. Because if it is just like, yeah, it's really good, I don't know. It's just going to be difficult to entice people.
Yeah, if you're trying to get the word out of your show by doing it mouth to mouth, you're definitely spreading something else.
You know what? Save a life, promote a show.
Adam, is there anything that you're thinking about on stage or off stage?
That's my motion to Rob. That little buzzing going on. Okay, Rob, you're going to possibly laugh, but also hate this. So my brother sends me a message. He goes, I'm going to go see a concert tonight. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, what's the concert? He goes, Girl Talk. Do you know Girl Talk?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. But Girl Talk is basically DJ Divsa. And DJ Divsa is a Toronto DJ that is just basically mashups. And it's just a bunch of usually hip-hop, some like dance and R&B. And then it's made into a podcast for an hour of just usually like the top 40 music. And Rob knows whenever I would have a party or there's like an event going on, I was always put it on because it's always bangers. People are always like, oh, I love this song. I love this song. And you don't have to keep changing the music. And so that's basically what Girl Talk is. And if you go on YouTube, you've never heard of Girl Talk. It's a DJ out of, I think, Pittsburgh. And it's just like, if you want to have a time where you're like, you're not trying to think too hard. You're just enjoying. It's just dessert after dessert. It's a lot of fun. So Girl Talk is now my new workout jam.
You know, hearing you over-explain things, which is normal for you, and then
is it really?
having it. Well, you like to make sure everyone understands.
Yeah.
And having you do that with the topic of music, I realized that, Adam, you just created a perfect Nardwuar for me. Girl Talk is a band who do mashups, which is the same as DJ Divsa. Great Nardwuar. If you don't
know Nardwuar, look up Nardwuar. It's actually quite amazing. But anyway,
he is the most famous Canadian music journalist of all time, and he is incredible. The way he interviews people
you've never seen artists like who might have like a stern demeanor or like an aggressive personality light up. And the question is always, how did you know that? Where did you find that out? Like, it blows people's mind. I'm sure if you Google Nardwuar blowing artists' minds, you'll see what we're talking about. Anyway, I didn't know that was a thing of mine, but I like to make sure everybody understands and everybody can get in on the joke.
I think that's very sweet. Like, if you're at a party and Adam's there and people are talking, he will stop the party and be like, okay, Tim, so the Herald is an improv format that we do, and that's how I actually know Rob. We do improv together. Like, you're very good at taking care of people. But you know who's been taking care of me? The fans of the Backline podcast. Oh my gosh, we're into week 3 or 4 of Project. bingo, bongo, improv time. And, I was looking at it before. We're at 84 subscribers. So we only have 16 more people to ring that bell until I can get a customized URL for this YouTube channel. And the promise that I made to everyone was that we were going to get the words bingo, bongo, improv time. And I made that promise without checking in if that's what Adam wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But it's too late now. So I want to thank all the people in the last 2 weeks who've been subscribing like crazy. For the people even today who were subscribing as we started recording. And I want to thank in advance those last 16 people that we need to get us across that finish line. You'll never have to Google our YouTube channel again. All you have to do is youtube.com bingo bongo improv time. So thanks so much, and I'm very excited to keep you folks updated about my quest.
And I think if you do subscribe, let us know using the hashtag bingo bongo improv time.
Yeah, I mean, even if you haven't, like, you're talking to your improv troupe, just throw the words bingo bongo improv time in there, just to let them know that you know.
But don't it's not a big deal. I think we should just start the trend of every once in a while. Okay, everyone, let's warm up. Maybe it's time for a little bingo bongo improv time. All right, let's get 2 players up on stage. Great, I'm in.
They come off stage, they finish their set. That was pure bingo bongo improv time. That was
at first nice. Just bingo, but that move that you made, bongo for sure.
Oh my God. And then you came in, did the walk in, bingo bongo improv time. For sure it was.
Subscribe.
Well, if you yes. So thank you so much. This podcast is brought to you by the Sonar Network. Thank you for subscribing. You can also rate, review on Apple Podcasts, hashtag bingo bongo improv time. We will see you next week, AC.
And Rob, doot doodaloot doot.
Doot doot.